Welcome to the Story World channel. Enjoy your viewing experience. In the usual evening setting, the town club swelled with a bustling crowd, vibrant energy pervading the air. Music reverberated loudly from the speakers, filling the hall with a pulsating rhythm. Amidst a cloud of acrid cigarette smoke, several girls moved gracefully at the center of the hall. "Madison, you're the most exquisite presence here tonight." One of them grinned, casting a playful glance at Madison. "Scarlett, I wonder who she's putting in all this effort for," she continued, a hint of amusement in her voice. "I'm just in a splendid mood," Madison responded with laughter. "Do you truly believe I'm captivated by any of our local boys?" Scarlett leaned in, her expression thoughtful. "Well, what about Pete?" she inquired. "He'd do anything for you." Madison regarded her friend with a wry smile, a hint of disdain in her snort. "Pete? I deserve more than Pete. I'm destined for a prince in a grand carriage, someone who'll sweep me away to a magnificent mansion." Scarlett's doubt lingered in her gaze, but she ultimately shrugged. "All right, let's call it a night. We have work tomorrow," she suggested, guiding Madison toward the exit. Behind them, a group of young men followed, eager to accompany them home from the club. Among them was Pete, his gaze shifting shyly toward Madison. She reciprocated with a condescending grin, allowing him to join her. Throughout the walk, the young man remained mostly silent. However, as they reached Madison's house, his resolve solidified. He couldn't contain his emotions any longer and decided to confess his feelings to her. "Madison, believe me, with me, you'll find true happiness," Pete implored, his voice brimming with passion. Madison's response was swift and direct. "Certainly, happiness is on the horizon, but not with you," she retorted firmly, disappearing into her house without a farewell. Pete stood there, a mix of disappointment and determination coursing through him. He returned home, his spirits dampened, yet hope still flickering within. He remained convinced that Madison's perspective could change, especially once he presented her with a splendid ring. Patience became Pete's companion in the ensuing days, his thoughts consumed by Madison. Despite his repeated attempts to engage her in conversation, she consistently evaded him, her displeasure evident on her face. As the month drew to a close, Pete embarked on a pivotal journey. He awaited his bonus, a reward for his exceptional skills as a mechanic. With that bonus, he envisioned purchasing a beautiful ring, one that could potentially alter Madison's perception of him. In the grand scheme of time, Pete's determination and hope remained steadfast. He believed that with the right gesture, he could capture Madison's heart and create a future together. In the neighboring city, Pete embarked on a mission, determined to acquire the most exquisite ring he could find. It demanded his entire bonus and salary, a decision that drew his mother's ire for an extended period. Nonetheless, Pete's satisfaction stemmed from his conviction that Madison's resistance would crumble in the face of such an extravagant gesture. Yet reality took an unexpected turn. "What am I supposed to do with this?" Madison grumbled, her discontent palpable, as Pete presented her with the ring one evening. "A waste of money. Did you honestly think I'd be impressed?" Pete's voice held a hint of bitterness. "Lily, I love you. I want to marry you." Madison's response was blunt, a reflection of her clarity. "Enough, Pete. You need to understand that I'm not the one for you," she declared, slamming the door in his face. Pete stood in a stupor for minutes, a whirlwind of shattered dreams engulfing him. When he finally regained his senses, the harsh reality settled in, prompting him to seek solace in the first bar he stumbled upon. It was a night of intoxication, a novel experience for him. In the midst of Pete's turmoil, Madison was on a train hurtling toward her aspirations. Long had she yearned to escape the confines of her countryside existence, leaving behind the quiet life in backwater town, her perpetually inebriated mother, and the string of unremarkable boyfriends that had crossed her path. Resolute and unapologetic, Madison embarked on her journey, anticipating a vastly different life in the city. Upon arrival, she promptly secured a modest apartment to share with a roommate and secured a waitress position at a local cafe. A year transpired, and Madison found herself immersed in the vibrant rhythm of city life. Her earnings were substantial, allowing her to save a modest sum. This new reality felt like a fairy tale, though one crucial piece remained absent: the prince she had dreamt of. That absence would soon change. Frederick entered Madison's world, a figure who commanded attention even before he set foot inside the cafe. Emerging from an elegant car, impeccably dressed, and adorned with a gleaming watch, Frederick was unmistakably a man of means. Madison's heart raced. Her intuition told her that the wait might finally be over. Fate was at play. Reciprocating her gaze, Frederick initiated a connection that would soon blossom. Phone numbers exchanged, a whirlwind romance ignited, propelling them into a passionate liaison. Within a mere week, Madison left her old life behind and moved into Frederick's opulent abode. The allure of luxury mingled with her dreams of legitimizing their bond, giving rise to aspirations of a future together, bound by commitment and shared happiness. Upon discovering her pregnancy, Madison's heart swelled with joy. Without delay, she hastened to share the news with Frederick, anticipation of his resolute response filling her thoughts. "Is it true, clever Frederick? I'm beyond thrilled," she exclaimed, her hope evident in her voice. "What's our plan from here?" Madison asked with a glimmer of optimism, though the prospect of marriage was conspicuously absent from her musings. "Next, my love, is a lifetime of happiness together, and of course, a wedding," Frederick declared, his joy palpable as he tenderly kissed Madison. Her elation was boundless, and she threw herself into the embrace of her beloved, overwhelmed by the momentous news. In the days that followed, Frederick immersed himself in his business endeavors, while Madison diligently attended to her work. As they stood in the hallway, poised to set forth on their respective paths, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Frederick's features as he glanced at his phone screen. "Is something amiss?" Madison inquired affectionately. 6 months later, Madison returned to her job at the cafe, carving out a modest existence for herself and her child. Yet dreams of a prosperous life and a wealthy husband lingered in the recesses of her mind. Fate took an intriguing turn when an Italian tourist in his 50s crossed the threshold of her cafe. His presence was magnetic, and he wasted no time in inviting Madison to join him for dinner later that evening. Despite the responsibilities of motherhood, Madison's yearning for something more prompted her to accept the invitation, coaxing Rebecca into watching over young Tyler for a longer period. Raphael, the Italian tourist, charmed Madison from the very first encounter. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day, and Madison found herself immersed in a newfound sense of happiness. A month elapsed, and Raphael broke the news that he was returning to Italy. He extended an invitation to Madison, proposing that she accompany him. The prospect of a new adventure ignited a spark within her, and Madison eagerly agreed. Yet, as discussions shifted toward her child, Raphael's unexpected reaction left her perplexed. "No, I don't want a baby in my household," Raphael waved his hand dismissively. "I have grown children of my own. Why would I want to complicate my life with someone else's child?" Madison's confusion deepened, her heart heavy with uncertainty. "But what about Tyler?" she queried. "Look, our plane departs at 10 in the..." The evening was painted in hues of uncertainty as Raphael's response lingered in the air, leaving Madison to grapple with her predicament alone. With a single statement, he offered her a ticket to Italy, but only for herself, casting her into a web of decisions that weighed heavily on her heart. In the aftermath of Raphael's departure, Madison found herself at a crossroads. On one hand, there was Tyler and the harsh realities of her life in the city. On the other hand, Raphael offered the promise of security and a new beginning in a foreign land. Hours turned into contemplation, thoughts swaying like a pendulum between the challenges she knew and the allure of the unknown. In time, Madison arrived at a resolution. Penning a heartfelt letter to Rebecca, she disclosed her intentions and pleaded for her understanding. With her belongings gathered and Tyler roused from sleep, Madison set her plan into motion. She entrusted her son to the care of an elderly neighbor, leaving him with a heavy heart, her whispered apology a tender farewell. Into a waiting cab, Madison slipped, the weight of her decision heavy in the air. The engine roared to life, propelling her toward the airport, while Tyler remained in the care of the elderly neighbor, his innocent gaze fixed on the front door. Rebecca's return was met with confusion and distress. The letter revealed Madison's desperate choice, prompting her to swiftly retrieve Tyler from the neighbor's home. Tears mingled with concern as she cradled the inconsolable child, attempting to soothe his cries until sleep finally claimed him, however fitful. In the following days, Rebecca embarked on a journey to find Madison's mother, her hopes for support dashed by the realization that alcohol had consumed the woman's life. Defeated and heartbroken, Rebecca found herself in a nearby store, seeking solace in a stranger's company. It was within the store's aisles that Pete's path crossed with Rebecca's. His astonishment at Madison's actions mirrored her own, leaving them both questioning how they had once considered marrying such a seemingly heartless woman. Drawn together by shared circumstances, Pete and Rebecca found themselves leaving the store side by side, engaging in conversations that flowed effortlessly. Tea turned into shared stories, and over time, companionship evolved into a deeper bond. Their connection grew stronger, and 6 months later, they sealed their commitment in marriage. Their union expanded to include Tyler, who found a loving home within the embrace of their family. 2 decades passed, and Pete and Rebecca's life was a tapestry woven with shared experiences and shared dreams. Settled in the bustling city, their joint efforts had borne fruit, giving rise to a thriving business and a sense of fulfillment that enveloped their days. Yet, the passage of time couldn't erase the echoes of the past. One day, as Pete strolled down the familiar streets, a distant voice called out to him, a name that held memories, emotions, and a chapter long since closed. Pete, the voice beckoned, evoking a flood of emotions that rushed forth from the depths of memory. The past and present converged, prompting Pete to turn, his heart pounding with a mixture of surprise, nostalgia, and curiosity. He turned around, the very fabric of time seemingly folding as he faced the unexpected. Madison stood a mere 3 steps away, her presence a testament to the passage of years etched into her weary features. Her eyes bore the weight of experiences beyond her age, and her appearance held a hint of disarray. Pete's astonishment was palpable, and he could hardly reconcile the woman before him with the memory he held. "Madison," he breathed, his voice a mixture of surprise and admiration. You look well," he managed, his gaze softening as he took in her worn demeanor. "How have you been?" A tentative smile graced Madison's lips, her response a glimpse into the life she had lived since they last crossed paths. "Hi, Pete. I've been living," she replied, her words tinged with both resignation and resilience. "I moved to Italy, you know, but my husband, well, he left everything to his children when he passed away. I found myself back here, in the homeland, with nothing to call my own." The truth of her journey unfolded, painted with the hues of hardship and unforeseen circumstances. Madison revealed that she now worked as a waitress, the echoes of her past mingling with the reality of her present. Curiosity lingered in her gaze as she inquired about Pete's life, her thoughts drifting toward the realm of the personal. "I wondered if you were married," she confessed, a hint of vulnerability threading through her words. Pete's response carried a sense of gravity, his words delivered with a gentle yet firm tone. "Yes, Madison, I am married. My wife is Rebecca, and we have 2 children, Claire and Tyler." Madison's complexion paled at the revelation, the weight of the moment sinking in. Her past and present converged, leaving her momentarily speechless as the implications of Pete's words settled within her. Tyler. Pete's voice held a quiet solemnity as he confirmed her unspoken question. Yes, Madison. Tyler is your son, he disclosed, the truth hanging between them, a bridge connecting their shared history to the present. A whispered acknowledgement slipped from Madison's lips, her eyes welling with emotion. My little son, she murmured, the weight of her choices and their consequences settling upon her shoulders. A plea, vulnerable yet tinged with regret, escaped her lips. Can I see him? Can I meet Tyler? Her words were laden with a yearning for connection, a longing to bridge the gap between the choices of her past and the life that had unfolded in her absence. A heavy silence loomed as Pete grappled with the complexities of the moment. His voice trembled slightly as he replied, his tone a blend of understanding and reproach. Why, Madison? Why did you make the choices you did? Why did you leave him behind with strangers when you traded him for an Italian life? Having laid bare his questions, Pete turned away, his steps carrying him forward without the customary farewell. Madison stood there, a mix of emotions swirling within her, her gaze fixed on his retreating figure. As the moments stretched into a poignant stillness, Madison's heart weighed heavy with the realization that opportunities for happiness had slipped through her grasp, lost in the wake of decisions made foolishly and without foresight. Her gaze lingered, tracing the path Pete had taken, a symbol of the choices she could never undo, and the opportunities that had slipped through her fingers.